amazon.com/convention.
A teachable moment this morning about how the federal government plans to borrow all that money between now and January.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business. From small business to big enterprise and everything in between, Amazon Business helps simplify the supplies buying process. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
I'm David Brancaccio. The Federal Reserve will wrap up its two-day meeting on interest rates later today with Chair Jerome Powell's news conference in about 5 hours. Rates will likely stay steady, and investors are focusing on something else. The Treasury Department's news just now about how it will borrow more than $100 billion for its new accounting quarter, and to do it, it will issue slightly more short-term debt. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has more on why the pros are watching this.
4 times a year, the Treasury Department announces how much the government will borrow and how it will borrow for that quarter and in the near future. It's usually a snooze fest. Morgan Stanley Global Chief Economist Seth Carpenter made those dry announcements years ago when he was at the Treasury Department.
Part of the objective when I was doing the press conferences was not to make headlines.
But no more. The interest rate the government pays on the bonds it issues to borrow money has soared, getting investors' attention. Things like mortgages are tied to bond rates, so Carpenter says they're getting pricier too.
When the 10-year Treasury yield goes up, the 30-year mortgage rate goes up, and we've seen mortgages up around 8%.
And the Fed didn't have to lift a finger. In fact, later today, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is expected to announce the Fed is leaving interest rates unchanged, letting the bond market do the heavy lifting. The Fed has been pushing interest rates higher to cool the economy and beat back inflation. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
S&P and NASDAQ futures are really quite steady with the news from the Fed coming around 2 Eastern Time. And another number, 25, the number of ships that will be allowed through the Panama Canal per day starting Friday, that is down from the normal 36. It hasn't been raining down there, and the water level in the canal is running low. It was the driest October in that region since 1950. We'll know today how much was spent to build houses and apartments in September. Now, the cost per square foot for a new home is rising, but the average size of properties is shrinking as building costs and interest rates rise. Marketplace's Savannah Marr reports.
Early in the pandemic, some of our houses started to feel a little cramped.
People found themselves working from home, spending more time at home.
Rose Quint with the National Association of Home Builders says buyers were looking for home offices, space to work out in.
Of course, very low interest rates allow them to buy those bigger homes.
But now we've seen a force more powerful than work from home, which is affordability.
Allie Wolf with the housing data firm Zonda says higher mortgage rates are driving demand for smaller homes, and the average size of a new build is down 10% since 2018. And while today's buyers may wish they could afford that extra bedroom or a bigger kitchen,
having builders pivot towards more affordable homes, usually by offering a smaller square footage, can be really good.
Wolf says it helps ensure there's affordable inventory in the long run. I'm Savannah Marr for Marketplace.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Affinity, provider of the CRM for the private capital relationship economy. Affinity knows who has the best relationship with the right startup. Affinity.co/marketplace. And by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at schwab.com.
Tonight will be 1 week since America's deadliest mass shooting of the year, when a gunman killed 18 and hurt 13 others at a bowling alley and at a bar in Lewiston, Maine. The shooter was found dead Friday night. Maine's Governor, Democrat Janet Mills, now wants to convene a bipartisan forum to discuss the future of the state's firearms policies, with few details beyond that. Maine does not require permits to own guns or rifles. Concealed carry is permitted without a permit for most people over 21. For more, let's turn to Emily Bader. She's a reporter for the Maine Monitor, operated by the nonprofit Maine Center for Public Interest Reporting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Back in 2019, help me understand this, Maine legislators rejected a red flag law, as some other states have. What was enacted instead?
So Maine enacted what's called a yellow flag law, which basically means that only police can take guns or weapons away from a person they deem at risk. Police get a report or something that indicates a person may be at risk to themselves or others. They bring them into protective custody. And then what is different than a lot of other states is they then have to seek basically approval from a medical practitioner that says that, yes, they agree this person is a risk. With that medical practitioner's approval, they then bring it to a court. A judge grants the restriction, and then police can take away that person's weapons.
And what are you hearing from your reporting? Some critics worry that the yellow flag system slows things down.
It slows things down. Also, there's just so many other steps that have to go into it, especially that medical practitioner. Actually, in a report by a panel released earlier this year, the Deadly Force panel, they actually conceded that this law is actually underused because there's just not a high enough availability of medical practitioners to do these evaluations. I spoke to Dr. Jeff Barkin. He's a psychiatrist, immediate past president of Tri-County Mental Health Services, which operates out of Lewiston. And he said that it's really difficult for a medical practitioner to make those sort of determinations, especially on the spot, especially knowing whether or not that person's a risk.
I was looking back at some of the legislation that did not make it into Maine law prior to pandemic. It's a range of things that didn't make it. It includes, I think, there was an idea to force criminal background checks.
Right. So several bills were put forward that did not pass. That includes background checks. There are also no permits required for sales, banning bump stocks or other devices that make it easier to pull the trigger or fire more bullets. Those all failed.
Emily Bader is a reporter for the Maine Monitor, a nonprofit news organization. She also covers healthcare issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back in 2016, voters in Maine, by a narrow margin, rejected a measure to require background check. Covers healthcare issues
that make it easier to pull the trigger or fire more bullets. Those all failed.
Emily Bader is a reporter for the Maine Monitor, a nonprofit news organization. She also covers healthcare issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back in 2016, voters in Maine, by a narrow margin, rejected a measure to require background checks for sales of firearms that would have had exceptions for those meant for hunting, self-defense, competitions, and shooting ranges. I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
You can tune back in at 4:30 this afternoon and get a wrap-up of the day's business and economic news on Marketplace here on 91.5